Operation Rising Lion, the 12-day war that shook the world in the early morning of June 13, 2025, as the first light began to touch the horizon over Tehran. More than 200 Israeli fighter jets pierced the Iranian skies in a coordinated, lightning-fast attack. The world watched in horror and disbelief as live footage began circulating on social media within minutes. Sirens wailed across Iranian cities, flames rose from military compounds, and chaos erupted on the ground. This was no ordinary airstrike. It was the beginning of what would be called Operation Rising Lion, a covert, meticulously planned operation designed to cripple Iran's nuclear capabilities once and for all. For decades, Israel had viewed Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat. While global powers negotiated, imposed sanctions, and held conferences, Israel watched Iran steadily enrich uranium, build underground facilities, and expand its ballistic missile arsenal. Mossad operatives had warned that Iran was on the brink of achieving a functional nuclear warhead. In early 2025, satellite imagery revealed new construction deep beneath the Zagros Mountains. Intelligence analysts concluded that Iran had crossed the red line, the point at which a military strike was the only option to prevent nuclear armament. The decision to launch Operation Rising Lion was not taken lightly. Behind closed doors in Tel Aviv, Israel's security cabinet debated for weeks. Hawkish generals argued that inaction would result in a nuclear-armed Iran within months. Others feared regional fallout, global condemnation, and retaliation. Prime Minister Yair Ben-David, facing immense domestic pressure, finally gave the green light on June 1st. Preparations began immediately. Mossad activated sleeper agents, hacked Iranian air defense systems, and conducted surveillance missions across Iranian territory at precisely 2:47 a.m. on June 13th. The first wave of F-35 stealth fighters took off, armed with bunker-busting bombs, precision-guided munitions, and electronic warfare pods. They slipped past Iranian radar. In a synchronized assault, they struck nuclear enrichment sites in Natanz, Fordo, and Arak. Minutes later, additional squadrons targeted missile silos, command centers, and suspected locations of nuclear scientists. In Tehran, explosions lit up the sky. Iranian officials scrambled to respond, but communications had been jammed. By sunrise, key facilities lay in ruins, and dozens of top nuclear scientists had been assassinated in their homes. Iran's response was immediate and furious. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, declared a state of total war against Israel. Hezbollah launched rockets from southern Lebanon. Pro-Iranian militias in Iraq attacked U.S. bases. Meanwhile, cyber attacks crippled infrastructure in Tel Aviv, causing blackouts and paralyzing transportation. The Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil choke point, became a war zone as Iranian speedboats harassed oil tankers. Global oil prices skyrocketed overnight, and stock markets plunged into panic. Amid the chaos, one voice echoed from across the Atlantic: former President Donald Trump. Though no longer in office, Trump maintained significant influence in American and global politics. In a surprising move, he called for an immediate ceasefire. urging both sides to step back from the brink of World War III. Critics speculated that Trump's real motive was economic, to stabilize global markets and protect American interests. Others believed he feared a broader regional escalation that could drag in Russia, China, and NATO allies. As the fighting raged, Iranian media showcased images of destroyed mosques, civilian neighborhoods, and crying children. Israel countered, with footage of intercepted Hezbollah rockets raining down on Israeli towns. The world split into camps. Western powers, led by the US and UK, offered lukewarm support to Israel, citing its right to self-defense. Meanwhile, Russia, China, and much of the global South condemned the attack as reckless aggression. In Europe, massive protests broke out, demanding an end to the violence and urging UN intervention. Inside Iran, anger boiled over. Thousands took to the streets, not only against Israel, but also against their own government. Years of economic hardship, corruption, and repression had left the Iranian population exhausted. Many blamed the regime for prioritizing nuclear dreams over the welfare of ordinary people. In Tehran, riots erupted, and security forces responded with brutal crackdowns. The war, instead of uniting the nation, exposed deep fissures in Iranian society. By day 6, Iran launched a massive retaliatory missile barrage targeting major Israeli cities, including Haifa and Tel Aviv. Although Israel's Iron Dome and David's Sling systems intercepted most projectiles, several missiles slipped through, causing significant casualties and damage. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded, and citizens sought refuge in underground shelters. Israeli morale, initially high, began to waver as the reality of war hit home. On the diplomatic front, frantic negotiations unfolded in Geneva and New York. Arab states, fearing the conflict would spiral into a regional inferno, pushed for mediation. Saudi Arabia, long a quiet supporter of Israeli containment of Iran, urged restraint. Qatar and Turkey tried to broker talks, but found little traction. Meanwhile, Israeli and Iranian representatives traded fiery accusations at the UN Security Council. The world teetered on the edge of a wider Middle East war. Despite growing international pressure, Israel pressed on. Special forces raids destroyed Iranian radar installations, and Mossad teams hunted high-value targets across Iran. At the same time, Iran stepped up cyber attacks, targeting Israeli banks, water treatment plants, and the national electricity grid. In cyberspace, a silent war raged alongside the bombings and missiles. The psychological impact was devastating. Videos of hacked Israeli news broadcasts showing fake evacuation orders caused widespread panic. By day 10, the death toll on both sides had climbed into the thousands. Cities lay in ruins. Families mourned lost loved ones, and millions of civilians lived in constant fear. Yet behind the devastation, something unexpected began to happen. Iranian nuclear scientists and engineers who survived the initial strikes reportedly regrouped in underground facilities in Kerman province. Secret intelligence reports indicated that Iran had accelerated its nuclear enrichment program rather than abandoning it. Operation Rising Lion which aimed to crush Iran's nuclear dream, paradoxically pushed it forward at a breakneck pace. The final 2 days of the war were marked by frantic diplomacy and last-ditch offensives. Israel launched a decisive air assault on the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's command headquarters in Tehran, hoping to force Iran into submission. The strike decapitated much of Iran's top military leadership, but also ignited a fresh wave of rage among hardliners. In retaliation, Iran fired its longest-range missiles, which reached deep into southern Israel, killing dozens and sparking wildfires. At this critical juncture, Trump's call for a ceasefire gained traction. Back-channel negotiations involving Oman, Switzerland, and secret intermediaries from Russia resulted in an uneasy truce on June 25, 2025. Both sides claimed victory. Israel declared it had crippled Iran's nuclear infrastructure, while Iran portrayed its survival and continued enrichment as a triumph of resistance. In the aftermath, the region was left scarred. Iranian cities needed years of reconstruction. Israel faced unprecedented economic and psychological trauma. Oil prices remained volatile, and global shipping routes required heavy naval escorts. The war reshaped alliances. Saudi Arabia deepened security ties with Israel, while Iran leaned closer to Russia and China for support. Hezbollah, though battered, gained popularity in Lebanon for its defiance. Meanwhile, the U.S. found itself increasingly sidelined in Middle Eastern affairs, its influence waning as regional powers filled the vacuum. Perhaps the most haunting question that remained was, did Operation Rising Lion achieve its objective? While Israeli officials publicly claimed success, intelligence leaks painted a different picture. Iran's nuclear program, though temporarily disrupted, was not destroyed. Instead, it had become more secretive and determined. Many experts warned that Iran, driven by vengeance and national pride, might now pursue nuclear weapons with renewed zeal, this time under even deeper cover and with greater public support. The world watched anxiously as Iran hinted at future strategic surprises. Meanwhile, Israel ramped up its missile defenses and prepared for possible new confrontations. Across the Middle East, nations braced for a new era of covert assassinations, cyber attacks, and proxy wars. Operation Rising Lion marked a turning point, not just in Israeli-Iranian relations, but in the global balance of power. It revealed the limits of military solutions against ideological and technological pursuits. It exposed the fragility of international diplomacy and the ease with which a regional conflict could snowball into a near-global catastrophe. Today, historians and analysts still debate whether the 12-day war was an inevitable clash or a preventable disaster. For the millions who lived through those terrifying nights of air raids and missile strikes, the scars remain raw. Families in Tehran and Tel Aviv alike remember the smell of smoke, the trembling ground, and the endless wail of sirens in their eyes. The war was not about nuclear dreams or geopolitical chess games. It was about survival, loss, and the haunting realization that peace, once broken, is harder to rebuild than any destroyed bunker. As we look back on Operation Rising Lion, the world faces a sobering lesson. In a nuclear age, where natio